The Bengals are probably letting the number one free agent out the door, and we've talked about what the Bengals should do. But if you thought he was going to take a 1 year deal, you're probably mistaken. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, in the number one sports podcast network in the land. He's James Rapien. I'm Jake Liscow. We've got you covered here on Locked On Bengals every day, going back to 2016 with all the latest Bengals news and analysis. And today we're going to dive into, in our mini episode of the day, Trey Hendrickson's contract projections for next season for this free agency, as The Athletic put out their list of top free agents and a bunch of contract projections. And some of you might have seen PFF's contract projection, which was something like 1 year, $21 million for Trey Hendrickson, a prove-it deal that I think was met with skepticism by James and myself, as one of the reasons we haven't talked about it a whole lot, if at all, on this podcast. And more in line with what we're thinking are the Athletic's projections for next year. And so I don't think there's a world where the number one free agent at a premium position, one of the top sackers in the NFL in the last 4 or 5 years, is taking a 1 year prove-it deal this offseason, especially everything Trey's gone through to get to this point, James. It's just really hard to imagine that he finally gets to free agency and doesn't have a market and settles for a 1 year deal. Instead, it's a much higher projection from The Athletic. And like I said, more in line with what we thought Trey would command on the open market.
Yeah, it far more in line. He's going to get paid. He has value. NFL teams aren't hurt because he had poor negotiations with the Bengals. They see, oh, a guy has 39 sacks in his last 41 games, including 4 sacks in 7 games this past year, underwent core muscle surgery, and that's it. Like, it's pretty cut and dry. And yeah, there are going to be teams that are really want Trey Hendrickson and are going to be willing to pay Trey Hendrickson. Wouldn't shock me if 3 for $99 is low. Wouldn't shock me one bit if there's multiple bids and it gets bid up and Trey Hendrickson gets 2 of 3 years on a contract guaranteed, and he signs a $110 million deal over 3 years with 60-something million guaranteed. It really would not surprise me a ton. Maybe it's 70 million guaranteed. And it's because, one, it's a weaker free agent crop. 2, pass rush is king. Duke Tobin quote, trademark. And Trey, regardless of how the negotiations have gone and his perceived value with the Bengals and for the Bengals and what it should be moving forward and how they feel about him, these other teams are going to see that sack production and say, that dog is going to hunt all day long in our scheme, in our defensive line, in our situation. And that's it. And there's going to be plenty of suitors. So this doesn't surprise me. I think this contract projection is far closer. I also think it's a reminder what the Bengals have and why other teams want it. And it's also a reminder, as much as I've pushed the free agent tag or the franchise tag, don't let him get to free agency. That's all Trey and his agent can think about right now. I guarantee it. They want to get to free agency because, boy, oh boy, they're thinking 3 figures. $100+ million contract coming Trey's way if they can get to free agency. And so you got to navigate that franchise tag element of it. But I go back to, this is a reminder of how the NFL in general views Trey in the value that he has.
Yeah, I think the franchise tag reminder is really salient for me. Like, you're talking about a guy that doesn't get to free agency. And I know that we've said this before, so apologies for the everydayers if this is a repeat for you. But guys like Trey Hendrickson, alpha pass rushers, just don't get to free agency.
Yep.
Maybe they do at the end of their, like Khalil Mack this year. He was an alpha pass rusher in his heyday. Joey Bosa was an alpha pass rusher in his heyday. Bosa's had injuries and is older. Khalil Mack obviously has been around forever. I think he's still good, but they would have to really overweight for Trey Hendrickson's injury issue in 2025 for that price to come down. Because when he was on the field, he was still really good. Like, all of the underlying numbers, I know he only had 4 sacks. I know he couldn't stay on the field, and maybe that's used against him a little bit in negotiations. But when a guy like this gets to the open market, if he does in fact get to the open market, and like you said, there's a bidding war happening,
Mhm.
That price could very well get driven up because of how rarely guys that get after the passer like this get to the open market, especially in this era of the NFL where you're seeing Micah Parsons getting traded for everything he got traded for. We're talking about Kenny Clark, about him being a potential cap cut from Dallas, being involved in that trade. So that part of it and how rarely they get to free agency again serves as a reminder that the Bengals shouldn't let this guy just go for nothing. They should really be exploring at the NFL Combine next week what kind of tag and trade scenario they can put together quickly. They should be, and Andre Perota wrote a really long Substack post about this. So go check that out, about the timing of what the tag and trade would have to look like. They should open those lines of communication to Trey's agent and to Trey Hendrickson and say, hey, this is our plan. We want to help you get what you want, but because we can control this thing a little bit, this is our intention. They can even communicate ahead of time, like Andre wrote, James. We'll rescind the tag before free agency. We don't want to be dealing with that cap hit either. We'll let you go negotiate, but let's see if we can get this trade done now. Is that giving up too much leverage? I don't know, but the Bengals should really be taking whatever reasonable offer they get. And that's what the reminder is for me.
I have an idea of how they can navigate it. It certainly aligns with Andre, and I haven't had time to read his full post yet, but I think it will align, and it's good that you have, so we can bounce my idea off what Andre, who's just awesome at what he does when it comes to Trey, how they navigate this and how they get an asset for Trey Hendrickson. We will do that coming up next.
To experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. And here's how that works. You use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's flights, tickets, the whole experience. I have never been to an NBA Finals game. I've attended one Super Bowl. That's the only championship I've seen in person. Sounds like a heck of a good time. And if you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a run, this is a perfect time to lock it in and get that NBA futures bet with a profit boost in for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Today's show is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Obviously, it's draft season. The Bengals trying to maybe get a draft pick in exchange for Trey Hendrickson. And, well, it's also time for the 5 Hour Energy flavor draft. Which flavors are the best with 5 Hour Energy? Well, 5 Hour Energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. I think that's really important to put out 0 sugar, and you get that boost that you're looking for. I know I'm going to need it, Jake, next week at the Combine, that 5 Hour Energy boost. And my go-to is cherry, but they have something for everyone with 5 Hour Energy, from confetti craze, fruity rainbow, cherry, like I mentioned, grape, berry, strawberry, banana, Hawaiian breeze, sour apple. And who doesn't like sour? I know I do. I love sour stuff. So you got to check out 5 Hour Energy right now. In the flavor draft, well, it's coming. All you have to do to get a hold of your 5 Hour Energy shots is go to 5hourenergy.com or get them on Amazon. All right, Jake, here's what I would do with Trey. I would tell I would tell him today, hey, we are tagging you. We're going to tag you. We're not officially doing it. We're going to tag you. We're going to talk with teams. And this is going to be a collaborative effort to get you to a spot where you're going to get paid and you're going to be made whole, because we understand it. So you tell him that. He's going to be pissed off. He's going to be mad. No doubt about it. You get ahead of it. You let him digest that part of it. Then when you're at the Combine next week, you talk with teams. You figure out which teams are willing to give you a third or a fourth. There's something in that range that you prefer, that you want. And maybe you get unique offers. I don't know. But you weigh those offers. You look at it. And if they're all similar, if it's pick 80 from the Colts or pick 82 from this team or pick 90 from this team and pick 94 from that team, and it could be whatever, pick 106 to 110. As long as it's not a division rival or something silly like that, say, hey, Trey, go talk to those teams. You have permission to talk to all these teams about your contract. We have agreed to compensation with all of these teams, whatever it is. It might be one team, it might be 5 teams. And I bet it would be more than one. I bet you could do that where you get adequate compensation from more than one team. And you give him that ability to kind of navigate it and figure out what's best and get the most money still. that he can get. And so it works in both ways. Now, this is going to take a hell of a lot of communication, which the Bengals and Trey's side have been really, really poor at. So I will offer my services. My hourly rate's pretty high, but Bengals, maybe we can figure out it is not this complex. And there is a way to do it where Trey gets his and gets it a ton and honestly gets it ahead of free agency. And on the other side of it, you're the Bengals. You are still able to get an asset for him this year that you can use. There is a way to do it. I get it. Trey's side wants to get to free agency. I understand. You can still make this work, though, and get something for him.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that Harold Lewis, Trey's agent, will also be involved in exploring the trades like he was the last time the Bengals gave him permission to seek a trade. The agent is involved at that point in time, but the Bengals obviously have the opportunity to have these conversations at the combine. That's one of the things that happens at the combine. Teams talk to agents, agents talk to agents, agents talk to teams. That's one of the big events that happens there. Teams can review those measurements at any time. The other big thing that happens there, of course, is the interviews and the medicals and the players or the teams getting their hands on the players for the first time in person and getting the in-person looks at everything. So that obviously is important too. But one of the major things that happens at the NFL Combine every year is all of these conversations, which is why you start to hear about what teams are going to be prioritizing over the next couple of weeks. Because you have that little bit of a gap between the combine, the beginning of the combine and free agency. And that's when teams start to understand the landscape of what's happening around them. Some of this stuff gets to the media, all that stuff. But yeah, I think that plan makes a lot of sense. The communication is a challenge for the Bengals, as always. Like, I'm with you, get ahead of it, right? Just like he's on his way. You might as well just deal with this one thing and get in front of this and do everything you can to make this as painless as possible. And maybe they just see that as just, you know what, we're not going to talk to him. We're just going to let him go. And that's that. And we've talked a lot about why they have an opportunity here to get an asset that they can use and also control where he goes. Because the idea of him going and signing with like the Baltimore Ravens or something is potentially nightmare fuel, right? Like thinking about that's not a good matchup for Orlando Brown. I think Orlando's a fine left. That's not a good matchup for Orlando Brown. And I don't like the idea of Trey Hendrickson rushing against Orlando Brown with Joe Burrow at quarterback.
And it could be another random where you just look at it and you're like, we're good. We're good. We'll send you here instead. And everyone's talking about Max Crosby, right? Everybody. Maybe the Raiders do decide to trade him and it isn't Cincinnati. And maybe they're interested in Trey Hendrickson. It worked once upon a time with the quarterback on a rookie deal.
Yeah.
Maybe they go that route and they say, we can get 2 1s for Max and then just give up a 3 for Trey and then plenty of ways to go about it. And I just don't try to tell me how valuable your draft picks are if you're not willing to do an extra step or two and do some tough, hard work to get an extra pick. Like that's really it. Like, yeah, it's going to suck and it's going to be uncomfortable and he's going to be pissed off and there's going to probably be cussing and throwing and just a lot of frustration back and forth. Some of it you'll hear, some of it you won't. But it is your job to try to maximize every asset you can. They've gotten to this point with Trey. Make it an uncomfortable 2 weeks and get it done because he does not want to get stuck on the tag. He wants a long-term deal. And if there are multiple suitors lining up with long-term deals for him, even if it's a trade, he's going to be down with that and be willing to make that work.
Some other notable contract projections over with The Athletic for the Bengals that we're not going to get into a ton in this episode, but we will be touching on in the future on Locked On Bengals. That includes Dalton Reisner, projected for 2 years, $14 million. Joseph Osai, also with a pretty hefty projection, 3 years, $11 million per year, $33 million total. So that one pretty interesting. Those could be some players the Bengals may or may not be interested in bringing back. I think certainly interested in Reisner. I think the jury is still out on the Bengals' interest in a return or a reunion with Joseph Osai once again, but it'll depend on how those markets develop and a really good group of projections done by The Athletic overall. So you can check those out at your leisure, of course, and we'll talk about some of the noteworthy ones for Bengals potential targets and Bengals free agents in a future show on Locked On Bengals. Until then, thanks for listening to this mini episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Payday, and have a good one.